Okay, Hotep, peace, shalom, assalamu alaikum, konnichiwa, greetings, earthlings. Um, we are, I'm here with Brother Anu, and tonight what we're discussing is the Twa. Um, we are discussing the Pygmies and the indigenous people of Timbukuno. Okay, so we're going to get started now. One thing I want you to understand and I want you to comprehend about the Twa is known as the oldest or the eldest deity known, Bes and Ptah. Okay, those are the eldest deities known to humankind. Um, when we talk about the Twa, we're talking about um, the indigenous people who have migrated from one geographical location to another throughout history. Okay, so this is one of the things that this is one reason that they are definitely indigenous people because, as I stated, you will see a reflection of them all over the planet. Okay, when you look at Asia, you can clearly see the presence of the Twa there. When you look at into India, you see some of the oldest skeletal remains in India are of the Pygmies. Um, when you look at um, Timbukuno and Turtle Island, you see presence of the Olmec, you see presence of the Twa as well. So we're talking about the indigenous people. Um, one of the geographical locations um, that is, um, affiliated and associated with Twa is not only Ireland, because we talk about the Scottish and the Irish essence of the Moors and the Twa in Europe, but we also have to focus on the fact that these are Congolesians as well. When we talk about the Bushmen, um, these are the Pygmies, and they are known as the oldest group, and they still exist right now to this day. Right now to this day, when we talk about the high priest and the priesthood um, in ancient Egypt, we are talking about the Twa as well, because they are the essence of any sense of uh, governing, any sense of um, priesthood, um, in, like I said, in various geographical locations. When you look at the Aztec and the Mayan civilization, you can see reflections um, of the Twa. Anytime you see um, images, a mask, or facial images in ancient artifacts, and you see the tongue sticking out, that's a representation of Twa. That's a representation of Bes. That is a representation of the eldest deity on the planet. So we have to keep that in mind. So when we see the Mayan calendar, when we see the stella, when we see the stella, when we see these various essences of calculation of time, um, and these images in different geographical locations, we have to understand that it represents the Nubians, the Kushites, okay? These people from the Congo and Rwanda. When we talk about the Rwandan genocide, when we talk about the people of Kigali, um, those were, some of them were actually um, from the Sudan. The Tutsi are indigenous as well. They are, you can still see reflections of them in the Sudan right now to this day. Um, and as I stated, when it comes down to Rwanda, Uganda, um, and the Congo, these are indigenous people. These people who are um, occupying this land, they are the original inhabitants. And one thing we have to understand about the peoples, the Bushmen and the Nubians, they are also a representation of Ethiopia. So we have to keep in mind that these people are travelers. They are the first traveling men on the planet. Okay. And until we find evidence that says otherwise, right now, they are considered the first travelers on the planet, and they travel all across the planet from one geographical location to another. They have been to Turtle Island, Timbukuno. They have traveled and have been all over the North America and South America. Okay. And as I stated, I don't know, places where they really have not uh, inhabited. Okay, because these people have been traveling around the planet for millions of years. Let's be clear on that. It's not thousands. They have been traveling this planet for millions of years. Okay, so we have to keep things like that in mind when we talk about these people. Now, one of the things that they have been known for is some of the first fighting styles, some of the first weapons, which are the bow and arrows. When we talk about weaponry and battle formation strategies, when we talk about battling, the bow and arrow was one of the first essences of a weapon. Okay, it was used throughout history in battle and still used in some places right now. If you really want to be honest, in certain places, they still hold, these tools to be sacred. Okay. They still hold these tools to be sacred and they still are using them right now to this day. Um, so, the Pygmies um, and the Mangbitu. Okay. Um, and I'm amazed by a lot of it because I'm learning and teaching at the same time. So I'm fascinated by much of what I learned, which is why I want to share these things with you all. Um, and the Mbutu, Mbuti, Mbuti. um, they are, like I said, they are indigenous, and they have uh, skeletal remains all across the planet. So you can't just say that they are inhabitants in just Africa, because it's obvious and archaeological evidence is showing that these people have been inhabited various geographical locations throughout history. They have taught um, and have been a reflection of um, the essence of humanity. Okay. So when we talk about the Pygmies, we also talk about the Pygmies of Ireland and in Scotland and the Pygmies in Europe. Now, there was one point in time where they were saying that, they had exterminated, they had been exterminated. Well, what has happened is, they haven't been exterminated. They have just moved around from one geographical location to another, which is what they have done throughout history. Okay, they have done what they've always been doing throughout history, which is maintaining and sustaining their ultimate survival. Okay, and as I stated, these people are millions. Some say, Dr. Arlene Bay say they are billions of years old. So we have to keep this in mind. Um, and in some cases, the pygmies were hunted down, like, like animals or like, you hunting food, they were hunted down and they were used, people by cannibalists. They were being eaten. They were used for their blood. They were drinking the blood. All sorts of weird, creepy, um, sick, wacko. All right, uncivil. Let's just make that clear. Uncivil. Okay, because this is not the behavior of the civilized. The civilized do not eat on another human being. Okay, that's not the behavior of a civilized being. Civilized do not plunder through dead corpses and tombs, and they don't plunder through, you know, um, cemeteries and graveyards. Okay, when we look at the Valley of the Kings, um, you know, it was, very disrespectful. Um, the lack of respect, and when you don't have any respect for nature, that's also considered uncivil savage behavior as well. So we want to keep those things in mind when we talk about these things. Now when we talk about the Pygmies in Ireland, um, the Tasmanians, um, when we talk about these Pygmies in Ireland, they have been instrumental in a host of things. And the one beautiful thing about them is that their migrational skills, they're travelers. Okay, they move from one, and when you look at the Congo and as some certain parts of the jungle, they are still living in the jungle. They move from one part of the jungle to another, and they live, on the most from the most natural essence of life, and these are ancient traditions, embracing nature to the fullest. And, when you look at their way of life and their lifestyle, it is absolutely amazing how they have survived, how they have not, they have, how they have not embraced modern day society and technology. They prefer to stay away from technology and keep their ancient traditions in their old ways. And one thing about that is you have to be thankful for that, because had they adapted to technology and modern day society, we would not still be able to look at them in awe and amazement at the fact that they have been able to sustain their presence. They have been able to preserve everything about their way of life. So, that's the beautiful thing about the Pygmies, is that the one great thing about them is that they have chosen not to embrace technology and modern day society. They have chosen to stay and to preserve their culture, to preserve their way of life. And because of them preserving their way of life, because of them not wanting to embrace technology and modern day society, we still have an opportunity to look at them right now, today, in awe, right now, living in that same way of life and still embracing nature. And not only do we have the opportunity to look at them, but we can learn so much from them as well. So, and this is the one beautiful thing about self preservation. It's obvious that that's the Pygmies' first law. Okay. It's obvious that that is their first law, is self preservation, because throughout millions and billions of years, they have preserved themselves. So these are the things, like I said, that are fascinating about this tribe in particular, and how they have contributed throughout history to you know their way of life, through their um, agriculture, through their weaponry, all of these things. And when we look back at some of the things that have transpired right now, we can see that, a lot of it, the origins are from the Pygmies. As I stated, some of the first weaponry, the bow and arrow, they still use that. Now we have gone far. We now we have guns. We have nuclear weapons. We have what you call those thingies? You know what I'm talking about? First essence of weaponry was, the bow and arrows. And like I said, that there are some parts of the jungle where the pygmies still hold these tools sacred. And that's the beautiful thing about self preservation, um, and their contributions to life. So when we talk about, you know, the origins of humanity, when we talk about the original beings, um, and when we talk about the evolution of man, the pygmies are going to be at the pinnacle. They're going to be at the pinnacle, and they're going to be the foundation of that. So we have to, like I said, take these things into consideration. And when we look at their whole entire um, makeup, you see so many things. Like I said, the bow and arrow. When you look at the flag, when you look at the American flag, when you look at a Muslim flag, you look at Christian symbolism, their essence of a flag. But when you look at flags and flagpoles, this is something that the Pygmies brought with them as well. Okay, they had one of the first essences of a flag, and this is a tradition. This is something that other cultures began to adopt. And now you look around the world, everybody, all of these different countries have a flag in their colors that represents who they are. And then when you look at Scotland, when you look at the Scottish kilt, when you look at the Scottish kilt, the green, the red, the black, those are African colors. Okay, when you look at many of the fashion designs, um, you can see the origin, because initially in some countries, before um, many of them were civilized, especially with the Europeans, they were using fish as a form of, clothing. So when they were civilized, there was fabrics that were brought, and not just the Europeans. We civilized in Asia as well. Um, Silk is one of the finest fabrics known to man. Satin. These are some of the things that um, originated from these different groups of these with this tribe, the Pygmies. Okay, throughout evolution. Some chose to move on with the modern day society, others chose to stay and continue to be natural. Okay. Everybody went in their own different directions. Like I said, some chose to stay and preserve the culture. Others chose to go and travel the world, or and go out and create, be like water, and they chose their own paths, created in, their own destinies and fulfill their own dreams. So when we talk about the pygmies, um, on of Turtle Island, the indigenous peoples here, you can clearly see that there are pyramids here as well. Okay, there are pyramids here as well, and the Batwa are here, and they're indigenous here as well. So we have the pygmies not only in Europe, you have pygmies in Asia, you have the pygmies in India, you have the pygmies in Africa, you have the pygmies on Turtle Island as well. So there are essences and reflections of them all across the planet. There is no disputing that. Okay, this is something that is clear. They are one of the first and the original, the oldest deity on the entire planet. There is no question about that. All right. And these are things that we and that's the beautiful thing, I said, I'm saying about self-preservation and evolution, and the fact that there were some who chose to modernize and embrace technology. Now with the embracing of technology, we have the ability to do research, and now that we have research, it takes us right back to where we began. Okay, so it's such a beautiful thing to begin to understand and comprehend. So when, like, as I stated, when you look into Asia and you look into China and you see the dragon and they have the festivals and they, put on face paint, body paint, they get dressed up and they, pay homage. They do, have parades. They do these sun dances. And in some of these masks that you see from ancient China, you see the face of the dragon. You see um, the dragon with the tongue sticking out as well. You see different symbolisms where the tongue is sticking out. Anytime you see the tongue in any ancient ruins, any ancient artifacts, that is a representation that the Pygmies had, are at the base of that civilization as well. They help mold that civilization as well. Okay. And as I stated, when you look at the Mayan and the Aztec, um, you can clearly see the tongue. And the tongue is when we talk about the tongue, we're also talking about the golden tongue of the ancients. And the reason why the tongue is golden is said that they are begging. They're using the golden tongue, trying to finesse their way out of the underworld. They are begging Asar to, let them out of the underworld into the world of mortals where we are. Okay. So they wish that they could be in our shoes. They wish that they could be in our positions. So the golden tongue is in a very, very, very ancient symbol. It is a reflection of the oldest deity on the entire planet. Okay. Um, so, um, as I stated before, this group of people, when we talk about Rwanda and we talk about the Rwandan genocide, that is a very, very dark moment in Pygmies history. Is no different than in Ireland when they were said to have been exterminated. Okay, trying to erase them from the planet, um, and it's a very hurtful thing to have, um, you know, been around and existed in a time that the Rwandan genocide occurred, and this is something is as a result of outside influence coming in, creating division, and as a result of the creation of division, there's this Holocaust. Okay, because that's a Holocaust when there's a mass genocide, humans being inhumane to other human beings. That is considered to be a Holocaust, and there were many lives that were lost in Kigali as a result of the Rwandan genocide, and it really does hurt to talk about it. To think that one group of us could be that cruel to another group of us based upon outside influence. We have to have stronger minds. We have to be smarter as a people. Um, and we have to learn from that very, very tragic situation, because that was definitely a tragedy. Um, the loss of lives, because one thing that the pygmies have taught us is that life is essential and self-preservation is the first law of human nature, and that genocide um, is definitely disheartening. Now, the president of Rwanda, he seems to be. They say you can eat off the ground over there. They say that he has made so many changes. He has forced, in a sense, and I don't want to really use the word forced, but I think I understand why. Um, those who were victims of the genocide and those who were perpetrators in the genocide, they were at us. They have been brought to a point where they were kind of, made to, make amends, because outside influence is benefiting while you all are angry with each other as a result of the lives lost, the hurt, the pain, the suffering. And these things have affected the lives of the people even right now to this day. You never know where or what could have happened or where things could have been, that had that genocide not occurred. So I saw a video of General Butt Naked. What was the other guy's name? Sutek. Um, these are various perpetrators of the Rwandan genocide. Um, and I guess they've turned their lives over. But, the president found it to be more beneficial to Rwanda to have everyone on the same accord. Okay. Everyone, on the same frequency. So, and as I say, they say that you can eat off of the floor um, in Rwanda, and you can eat off the ground. It's so clean. Um, and the children are learning. I saw a school and the children were learning. They have computers now, technology. So hopefully, hopefully the president is helping them get over this tragedy, the pain, the suffering that they experienced. Um, and trying to come together with other African nations, other countries coming together, and trying to unite themselves and look and take a look at all that has been lost. You know, I think that Egypt is now, demolishing many of the ancient Egyptian artifacts. And places like Rwanda, if they were open to it, they could, go to the leaders of these countries. And if the leaders of these countries don't want these artifacts, then neighboring countries like Rwanda and other countries can take the artifacts, and they could possibly start themselves a museum, but they can take our artifacts and they could learn and use them, um, you know, as a sense of teaching their history and their culture. So these are some things that I think would be beneficial to Rwanda. Like I said, the Pygmies have been influential. They have been instrumental in all over the planet. So when we talk about pygmies, we have to be thankful on every geographical location in Asia, whether the Asians like it or not. Okay, whether they comprehend their origins or not, this is, this is undisputable information and facts. Okay, and if anybody else has any um, information that predates this, I'm all ears. I'm told that they have tombs. They have tombs in Asia, but you are not allowed to visit the tombs. They are keeping them, I guess, to themselves. They're being a little stingy. But I am familiar. I mean, I am curious, um, as to what's going on with the tombs and inside of them, and the research. I'm very curious as to what's going on as well. So, as I stated, the Pygmies have been in the Twa, Bess. He is, a god of fertility, a god of protection, a god of childbirth. And they said this is not only, some say Bess is god and goddess. I mean, well, male and female presence. Um, but represents fertility. And they said that at one point in time throughout ancient Egyptian culture, the women would have Bess tattooed on their inner thigh. Um, he was a representation of a sexual god or sexuality. He had various attributes. And when we talk about the pygmies, we talk about short people, midgets, the very, very short people. Um, and they say that this would be used to be considered a handicap. Okay. Now, one thing about the pygmies, the Hutu, short people, the short people and the Tutsi, the people from the Sudan, started to fall in love with each other. Okay. The pygmies were the short, the Tutsi were the tall of the Sudan. They started to fall in love with each other and create life together. And here you have the medium sized people like myself. Okay. My father, he was a giant. He was tall. He would have to duck his head and hold his head down sometimes to come inside of a place or when he entered a building or an establishment. That's how tall he was. He was considered a giant, and many people were amazed by him. And his DNA is traced all the way back to the Sudan. His DNA is traced all the way back to the Pygmies. Um, so, um, the one beautiful thing about um, the Pygmies is that when you begin to look at how you see the tongue in our Southeast Asia, you see that tongue over here in in Timbukuno over here on Turtle Island. You also see the tongue over in Africa. And despite many cultures, many ethnic groups trying to erase the pygmies from history, trying to pretend as if they didn't exist, trying, stealing identity. You have people who attempt to steal other people's identity. When they begin to realize they're not the chosen one, they're not the original, that they're just, pretty much a copy, it sometimes sends a shockwave of anger. Then the shockwave of anger turns into hatred. Okay. So this is where you have a lot of negative uh, genocides, you have a lot of negative events occurring throughout history as a result of this anger, this frustration, and this hint of jealousy. Now, you can look out throughout history. When you look at the ancient Egyptians, you see the story of two brothers, one is jealous of the other. When you look at the biblical essence, you see the same essence of the story. Two brothers, Cain and Abel, jealous of each other. But they are both children of the first and the original man. Okay. So we have to, understand these correlations and understand how um, throughout history things have some things have changed, but there are some things that have still yet remained the same. So, with that being said, I am going to end there. But as I stated before, the Batwa are indigenous to Turtle Island. They're indigenous to Africa. They're indigenous to Asia. They are indigenous to every geographical location on the earth and probably far and beyond. I wouldn't doubt it. So, Hotep,